and welcome to Your Healthy Mind. I'm Caryn Treister with Never Settle Life Coaching, and we're going to talk about all things healthy for your mind, your body, and your spirit in this series. And I'm so excited today. We've got an expert in nutrition who's going to tell you all about what to put in your body for your optimal health, for stress eating or emotional eating, and even the relationship between your gut and your brain. And I can't wait to hear it. It's going to be so interesting because for optimal performance and having the most joy and health in your life, these are all crucial things. So let me introduce our guest today is Fiona Kane. And she is an experienced and award-winning nutritional medicine practitioner. She's a mind-body eating coach and a holistic counselor. And she helps people identify things like diabetes and thyroid issues and stomach issues and celiac disease and all kinds of health issues, and she resolves them through nutritional medicine and counseling. And she's appeared on TV, on the media, and many radio shows. So I am so excited to introduce Fiona Kane. Welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here. Or should I say g'day?
I might. I love it. And she, as you can tell, hails from Australia. Where in Australia?
In Sydney.
That's awesome. I love that. And we were just talking a little bit before about the differences in saying mate, not mate, might, right? and the different accents you can put. Can you give us a little bit of that?
Yes, well, I suppose mate can mean lots of things. So it could be g'day, mate, or it could be mate, 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 mate. So it's all a different intonation around what it means. It's very funny.
Oh, I love it because I've heard that a lot of Australians you like to shorten your words, right?
Yes,
definitely.
And say everything's short.
Everything's short.
So I go to the servo to fill up my car. Not the service station, the servo, mate.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
And I'll meet you the Savo. Not this afternoon, the Savo.
Oh, the Savo. You kind of cut off a little bit, right?
Everything's got a short version. And people's names do as well. If you've got a long name, too bad. It's not going to be a long name.
Oh, so that could be easy to pick up then. That's great. So tell me a little bit. I know you're from there, and how did you get into nutrition? And why are you so passionate about sharing it with others and helping people?
Yes, well, it was a long journey. To be honest, when I was very young, and I'm 50 now. And when I was at school and when I was very young, I had no interest in nutrition whatsoever. I didn't really care about nutrition until my health started to fail, which is a really pretty typical thing. Most of us,
right.
If it ain't broke, we don't think about fixing it. So we really don't think about our health until we don't have it, many of us. And lucky or unlucky for me, depending on your perspective, that happened to me when I was in my 20s. So when I was 25, I had a stroke. And when they scanned my brain, I'd actually had a few. I was having all of these small strokes. And since then, I'm partially blind now because of that. And I've got a whole stack of health problems. I've got 2 autoimmune diseases. One is Hashimoto's, so my weight goes up and down, and I'm very fatigued most of the time, and a whole bunch of things going on. And essentially, that whole experience, it was very frightening, very disempowering. And somewhere along the way, though, I knew that nutrition mattered, and I didn't have a very good handle on that, and I had a very poor diet. I don't blame my poor mum in heaven, rest in heaven, mum. I don't blame her. A lot of it was me, because her way of showing love was through food. And I was one of those children that wouldn't eat anything except for the rubbish, basically.
Uh-huh.
So essentially, I'd have an ice cream in one hand and a chocolate in the other hand. I'd be screaming for something else. And my poor mum just couldn't deal with me, and I just wouldn't eat regular food. So anyway, so I just had a really poor diet and really poor nutrition. And I did somehow know that nutrition mattered for that. So I actually went to study nutrition to heal my body. And I studied counselling at the same time because I became aware that my headspace was a really big issue. It took me a long time to recover, not so much physically, but emotionally. I was very frightened. My grandmother died when she was 30 from a brain hemorrhage. So I actually thought that that was the direction I was going in. So I thought that I wasn't going to live beyond the age of 30. And I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And so I studied to heal my body, to learn how to heal my body, which I did. So it was completely selfish reasons for studying. And then over time, I just became more interested in that than anything else. I was a PA, secretary. There's all, I don't know, they had different names for it back in the day, whatever you call it. I was doing that for many years in the mining industry and in the building industry. And then I just didn't care about it anymore because I was so obsessed with nutrition, because I just realized the power of nutrition and the power of your narrative, your thoughts, the way you think about life. So I had just a massive turnaround because I had to. And I think it was unlucky, but I think it was also lucky because that happened to me in my 20s. I sorted it all out a long time ago. So I'm not suddenly at 50 saying, oh my goodness, I need to figure out how to look after my health. I've had to do it for a long time, and it's kind of a good thing to get in the habit of early on, I think.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good point, because if you had gone any longer, right, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
And that's the problem that I find. I was in nutrition for a while and helping others as well. And I found that people just didn't want to pay any attention until the pain was so bad that then it was so hard to undo. So I think we're getting more and more awareness around that, don't you find now?
Yeah, I think we are. But I think one of the issues too is that many of us now, including me, we've never, up until a certain age, up until I changed my diet, I'd never really been well. And because I'd never really been well, I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what that was. So if you don't have a baseline, if you don't have a reference point, when someone says, eat well, you should eat well so you can be healthy, you don't really understand what it means. So it really wasn't until I was really sick and then I started eating well. And then I thought, oh, that's what it feels like to not have headaches all the time. Well, that's what it feels like to not be bloated all the time. Or that's what it feels like to be regular or to have a more balanced mood or whatever the thing was. But essentially, they were all new experiences for me. So that's the other thing too. I think if you have a reference point for what being well is, and I say this to parents because I had a friend once say to me, oh, my son's moved out of home and all he does is he lives on pizza and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, but he spent his whole life with you eating really well. So he's always been well and felt good. And one day that diet, he's going to feel terrible. And when he does, he's got a reference point. He understands what to do to go back to that. And he did. And he eats healthier than any of us now. So if you have a reference point and if you felt good, you will then know what it's like when you don't feel good, and you will usually do what helps you to feel better. But for many of us, there's been generations and generations who don't have any knowledge about nutrition and have never really felt good. And so it's really hard to comprehend when people say, well, you should eat healthy. You don't really understand, you truly don't understand the power of it and why. And if you don't understand why would you change all of your habits and stop eating the thing you love to eat? Why would you do that if you didn't understand what was the payoff, what's the benefit of it? And people often don't understand. So it is getting better, but it's challenging because there's been generations of us who just don't know.
Well, that's so true. And we do normalize how we feel. And if, like you said, if we grew up with that and we've always had it, we don't know the difference. Now, the big thing that I find with a lot of people is, oh, it's too expensive to eat well. So
Yes.
do you run across that? Do you find that?
Yes, I do. And it is and it isn't. It depends, because it is tricky. Certainly when you look at things like, especially inflation these days and things like meat prices and things like that, you can see that in some ways that is an issue. At the same time, though, when you do look at how much people spend on junk food, I look in people's trolleys sometimes at their supermarket, and I think, well, there's $150 worth of junk food in there. You could have probably spent $60 or $70 and got some things to cook throughout the week. So it does depend on where and what and where you're accessing and buying food. But I think also there's cost and there's cost. So we perceive the financial cost, and I understand that people are on budgets and there's only so much they can afford. So I'm not being unrealistic about that.
Right.
But we don't perceive the cost of, what if we can't work?
Right.
What if we're paying exorbitant prices for medications? What if we have to go to the pain clinic and this clinic and that clinic? What if we have to spend years of our life chasing anything to try and relieve pain or to try and stay well? What does that cost? So I think there's cost, financial initially, like the outlay of buying the food, but then there's the cost of not doing it. And then what does that cost you in healthcare and those sorts of things down the track, and inability to work, or just cost of quality of life, not having energy, not feeling good, not being well enough to go and do that retirement holiday that you wanted to do, those sorts of things. So it's also looking at, what do you mean by cost? And I think, yes, we need to be realistic and we need to look at how to budget for healthy eating. And I understand that can be challenged depending on where you live and the availability of fresh food. So it is an issue, and it's different in different places. But I think we also have to understand the cost down the track. And I think the cost down the track can be huge. So, it's weighing that up and understanding that.
As I'm getting older, I can see that. And I see it with more and more people that I know, that they're paying for it now. And I'm just so excited that I started Good Nutrition probably about 20 years ago. So it wasn't, it wasn't that long ago. However, once you start doing it, I love when you were talking about energy, because if people could just realize the energy alone, right, that you get from good food. So
and that's the thing, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know.
It's true. So explain a little bit when you weren't feeling well to when you were. So what were those markers that, and I know you mentioned about you didn't have headaches, but like things like energy or things like that made you feel really good so that you would want to make the difference and eat well.
Yes, yeah. Well, I actually suffered from terrible migraines, and they stopped. So that was huge in my life, because if you've ever experienced migraines, they are debilitating. But also there was lots of things. It was overall energy. It was my skin. I also had colds and flus all of the time. So I was always getting sick, and it would always knock me right over. And very much sluggish system, and not regular, and so lots of bloating and all of the uncomfortable symptoms that go with that, and just also I was quite anxious, and I had trouble regulating my mood. I had trouble, and I'd be wired and tired, so I'd sort of be wired energy that wasn't very useful and couldn't get much done, and then I'd be exhausted, and so I was like up and down all of the time. So all of that was my normal. And then suddenly, and also sleeping, like weird sleep and not sleeping well, and then waking up tired. And that's turned around. And I'm not pretending that I have health problems. I have ongoing health problems. I'm not pretending I eat broccoli. I've cured everything. I'm perfect. Wonderful. Because that's a lie. But compared to, even though I'm 50 now and I do have a bunch of health problems, compared to how I felt when I was in my early 20s, a million times different. Because now I actually do know how to eat. I can regulate my mood, and I can regulate my energy, and I can, I know how to eat essentially to nourish myself. So now I can think about it. And what I do now is I think, what do I need to do today to practice self-care? What does that look like? And I think, what am I doing today? And how do I need to feel? And that's actually what informs my choices. So that's what informs what I eat, or whether I go for my walk now or later, or whatever I do. But now I know the power of those lifestyle choices. I actually plan for them. But yeah, the way I feel now compared to the way I felt in my early 20s, I couldn't even compare it. And that's someone who's generally not the healthiest, well, healthy as in I've got health problems that are sort of genetic and all sorts of things. But that is, considering all of the challenges I have, I still feel great compared to how I felt when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And what would you say to our audience if they're struggling with anxiety, or they want to be more calm, first of all?
Yes.
What would you say? What are some things that they could do for that?
Yes, so there's a lot you can do. So nutritionally, what you would need to do is, one, make sure that you get some help, or make sure you've got good gut function. Because if you're having digestive issues, then maybe you're not even absorbing nutrients very well. So one, it's kind of ensure that you sort of do things to heal your gut. So you get help if you need to, but really make sure that your gut is functioning well. But the second thing is, make sure you're eating well. So you have to eat the nutrients, but you also have to absorb them, which is why the gut function matters. But you need to make sure you have protein. You need to have protein with every meal. Now, you can decide whether it's a meat protein or not. I favor meat protein. That works better for me.
Every meal you should have protein?
Every meal you should have protein.
Wow, really?
Every meal.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be enormous amounts of protein. I normally just say that sort of palm to hand size protein. And your palm, your hand. I've got tiny hands. My husband often gives me the same amount as him, and he's way bigger than me. So yeah, your palm, your hand.
What does the protein do for each meal? How does that help?
It helps in lots of things. So firstly, what it does is protein balances your blood glucose levels. So it helps you feel smooth and just a calm energy and not hungry to your next meal. So you stay fuller for longer, and you just maintain this sort of lovely, nice energy for several hours until your next meal. Without protein in a meal, you tend to crash just half an hour after the meal or something like that. So it essentially stops that crash and makes you feel really, really just the energy really stable until your next meal. But the other thing that is really important is protein is made from a whole bunch of amino acids. And those amino acids are what makes things like serotonin and dopamine and melatonin, which are all of the neurotransmitters that deal with sleep and mood and happiness and joy in the world and anxiety, all those issues. That's made from protein. And protein not only makes those neurotransmitters, but it makes pretty much everything in the body. Everything in the body is made from protein. So even your gut wall is made from protein. Your skin is made from protein. So you need it for everything in life. But particularly those neurotransmitters in the brain. I see people, they come to me and they're depressed, and all they eat is toast and there's no protein. Right. And they get put on antidepressants, and I've got no issue, like that's separate. People do whatever you need to do, and they play their part. But to do that without even looking at your diet first, it's like, well, actually eat protein, because that's what you need to make neurotransmitters. So protein is vitally important, and it should be at every meal just to maintain the energy and the mood, and to give you enough protein so that you've got that protein to make everything in your body, including those all important neurotransmitters.
So I have a couple questions around protein.
Yes.
Number one, so would you recommend animal or plant, or both, first of all?
I think it's good to get a mixture of both. But in my opinion, and this is just from a science point of view, everyone can have their ethics and religion, and that's their own thing.
Sure.
But from a science point of view, I believe that animal proteins, some sort of animal protein in our diet is really important. Animal products are really important. You just cannot get all of your nutrients from a vegan diet, not without supplementing. Animal proteins, the way it works is that you've got essential amino acids. And if you eat something like an egg, even, an egg has all of the essential amino acids, and they're essential because you have to get them from your diet. You need them for survival. Well, you won't get that in a vegetarian option. You won't get all of them. In most cases, it's just not available. Or you have to have, you have to mix the beans with the nuts, or you've got to mix things together. So meat products or animal products are just the easiest and simplest way to get all of your amino acids and to get enough protein and a whole bunch of nutrients like B12 that is just not available in a form that your body can use in the plant kingdom. So I've got no problem with people choosing whatever diet works for them, but I really do think that some form of animal protein, whether it's the animals themselves or whether it's just eggs or cheese or whatever it is for you, is important to get those nutrients. Otherwise, you have to work very hard to ensure you're getting those nutrients and possibly will need supplements.
Well, that's good to hear, because and I think everybody, has to do what they want. I still eat a little bit of animal, not a lot.
Yes.
I don't really like red meat, but I do add that. And I know that the amino acids you were saying break down the food, so your digestive system is going to be better. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, and the amino acids, what they do is they actually, the digestive system, the whole lining of the system is made from the amino acids. They actually help heal that system and create a healthy digestive system, along with other nutrients like zinc and vitamin A. So that's why it's also important if you eat sort of good quality fats. So if you have something like an egg, you've got the yolk in there, which has got the good fats. It's got your vitamin A, your vitamin D, your zinc, those sorts of things are in there. So essentially nature does come, it packages things all together. And we sometimes think we can do better than that, and we can make something in a factory that is better than that, but we really can't. And really too with diet, I would just say it's about listening to your body and nurturing your body, because some people do better with more meat, less meat, or they don't eat red meat and they only eat whatever they do, that's fine. But it's about being honest and listening to your body and nurturing and nourishing your body. Because sometimes people, they come to me with a health issue that's caused by their diet, whatever that may be, and they want to fix the health issue with the diet that they currently have. So they're really stuck on the fact that they want to be purely vegan, or they want to be purely paleo, or whatever they want to be. And my sort of thing is, just don't get religious about it. It's from a science point of view anyway, I would say it's not a religion, and it's about what works for you. So people get quite rigid about it. And what happens is they start having health problems, and they will not change their diet because they have the right diet, because their religious book about the diet tells them it's the right diet. And it might be a fabulous diet, but it might not be for you. Or it might have been for you 5 years ago, but it might not be now. So I think it's about being less rigid around the rules and the perfect diet, and being more relaxed about, is this working for me personally?
Right.
And if it's not, well, then I need to change it up, as opposed to this sort of religious zealotry that people have around diet often these days.
Yes, and I totally agree with that, because I know when I was eating certain foods, it would really bother my stomach, and I think I started noticing that.
Yes.
That when it felt like bloated or just hurt, and I just eliminated those foods, and I felt so much better. So other people can eat them all the time and absolutely no problem. So
yes. And it's not necessarily about good and bad foods. It's just in general, like some people, broccoli doesn't sit well with them, or that's fine. They can eat other green things. So it's not about necessarily good or bad foods. It's about just knowing what works for you. So and just having a nice balance.
Right. One more question about the protein, because I know that you can eat too much protein too. And my last figure I remember was somewhere around 30 to 35 grams. Is that right? Or is that not right?
Yeah. So you can have too much, and too much would be a lot. So too much would be, for most people, would be if they're eating over 200 grams or more a
Oh
day.
my gosh, wow.
And so for
Okay.
most people, and this is it's a very general answer because of course we're different weights, different sizes. And if you're a bodybuilder, it's different again.
Sure.
But for most people, we do well to have about 30 grams of protein per meal.
Okay. Okay.
And to get it in, clarify that, because sometimes people get a bit confused with it. 100 grams of a protein product is not 100 grams of protein. So, for example, if you get a small can of fish, a tuna or salmon or something like that, those small cans, they're about 100 grams. There's about 20 grams of protein in there. Might be 25. If you have a 100-gram piece of chicken, there's about 30 grams of protein in there. So just to understand, it's not one for one. Like an average egg is about 5 grams of protein.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes people just do it on the weight of it and they're getting way less protein than what they need.
Right.
About 30 grams sits well for most people.
Right. So you said something interesting about the absorption. And so the saying that people always hear, you are what you eat. What would you say to that?
Yeah, you are what you absorb.
I love that.
It's more true.
It's so true. But how do you know? So one way to know that it's getting absorbed better is through protein. Are there any other things that you can do to?
Yes, so there's several things you can do. So your clue that it's not would be any digestive issues. So if you're running to the bathroom 5 minutes after you eat and everything goes straight through you, there's a real clue there that you're not absorbing your nutrients. But you also might not be absorbing if you're having lots of reflux and lots of like indigestion after you eat. So essentially there's a couple of things that you can do. So one is making sure that your meals are balanced. So there should be protein, but also balance that out with your veggies. Your veggies are really, really important. They're a source of fiber and there's nutrients in there and they feed your microbiome, which is also really important. So it's balancing it out and making sure there's some good fats on that plate as well. If you're eating some sort of meat or fish, it would probably be part of that. But otherwise, you'll get your good fats in your avocado or in your olive oil or in your eggs or your butter or dairy, if that sits well for your body. So it's just essentially making sure you've got that balance of good fats, protein, and loads of veggies. So first of all, it's that. But secondly, it's also how you eat. So when we look at studies, so one of the most studied diets in the world is the Mediterranean diet. And as nutritionists, we get very hung up on how much olive oil was in there or how much broccoli or whatever it is. And while that's important, what we miss is the lifestyle of the people who were eating the Mediterranean diet who were so healthy. And they lived in a village in Italy, right on the coast. So they ate, everything was local. They either grew it in their backyard or they caught the fish outside the door. They had very physical lives, as in they were farming or they were fishing or they were walking around their village, and they were very connected to their community. They're a community where as you get older, you maintain your value in that community just as much as anyone else, and actually you become the wise elder person, as opposed to someone off in a nursing home that no one cares about. So it's really important to understand that in those studies, the people were connected in their community. They were exercising all of the time as just part of their normal life. They ate really healthy food, but also they didn't eat a whole bunch of junk food in between that. They weren't grazing all day. They were poor farmers actually, and they were quite busy with their fields and farms. So they actually were having 2 meals a day, maybe 3, and just really good quality meals. The other thing too is that if you think about the fact that in parts of Europe, like Italy, they stop at lunchtime and they rest. And they prepare a healthy meal with their family and maybe their friends. And they might have a glass of wine, they might not. But essentially they stop and relax for hours at lunchtime. And so the way they eat, if you compare that to the way we eat, we'll eat in the car in the drive-through, on the way somewhere, in the traffic while we're feeling stressed, or over the top of our computer or device, or when we're working. Whereas they're relaxed and they're sitting and they're, looking at the fields and they're smelling the smells of the beautiful meal that's cooking, and they're chatting with friends and connecting with people. So the way you eat is just as important. And if you are someone who suffers from stress or anxiety, or if you're having reflux and digestive issues,
Right.
the way you eat is almost more important than what you eat. So being calm while you eat is really important. So with my clients, I actually recommend that they do a breathing exercise for 1 minute before they eat. And it's just 4 seconds in and 7 seconds out. So that just, if you breathe that way for 1 minute, it takes your body from that fight or flight, busy mode, that sort of nervous system mode, into rest and digest. And that is exactly what it says it is. It's the mode your body has to be in to make digestive enzymes so you can actually digest that food. So how you eat is just as important as what you eat. And if you're eating in a relaxed, slower way, you actually help your body absorb the nutrients and you help your body do the digestion. So we wonder why, driving through the drive-through while we're on a phone call, while we're in bad traffic, it's throwing the food down really fast. And we wonder why we have indigestion.
Oh my gosh, that is so key. And I love that because, first of all, I love the analogy with the way Italians sit down, and that's so true. Well, of course, their food is to die for. Like,
Yes.
I'd sit down for 2 hours. I love going there and eating.
Yes.
But relaxing. And the way I found that out is because I got into meditation. But you can't always sit and meditate. But I love that breathing exercise that you just gave, because it makes so much sense. And I find that your digestive system, works so much better when you are relaxed, when you are,
Yes.
like, I know a lot of people have trouble with their digestive system when they're traveling, right? Because it brings up
Yes.
anxiety. So that all makes sense.
Yes, yeah. And it's really important to understand when we're in that stress mode. When you're in that mode, your body actually thinks you're about to get eaten by a lion.
Right.
And if you're about to become lunch, it does not matter how well you digest, right?
Oh my
so
gosh,
your body's not
that is
concerned
great.
about digestion. So
That's-
no blood flow will go to your digestive system if you're in that stress mode. It just won't.
Right.
And I try and always come up with simple strategies for my clients, because yes, I love meditation. It is great. But if people are really overwhelmed and really stressed and they just find that they can't do that right now.
Not right before, you know what? That's why, that is perfect.
But everyone can do 1 minute.
Mm-hmm. And so for
That's
sleeping
possible.
too, is there something at night that would help you to sleep a little bit better?
The same thing really is just calming yourself. So even if you did that breathing technique at night, it would be helpful. But also for sleeping at night, it's important to understand that our body has a circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is that sleep-wake cycle. And it's very controlled by light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
And what we often do, since we've had electricity, we have light on all of the time. And we sit there with our giant screen TVs or our devices in our face right up until midnight, and then turn the light off and lay down and wonder why we can't sleep.
Oh, I know.
And it's because your body's been getting the signal that it's wake time, it's daytime, it's daytime, it's daytime. It doesn't know that this light that I've got in front of me, my body doesn't know it's not the sun.
Right.
And my body assumes it's the sun. So part of it is also having that wind down time in the evening, maybe where you start to turn off the big lights and put on the more, I use those salt crystal lamps in the evening, or candlelight, or kind of more those orange lights in the evening, and just dim it down, calm it down. Maybe not watching Game of Thrones right before you go to sleep. Just kind of, have a half an hour where
it stimulates you, and
so,
looking on Facebook and all that stuff. It's like,
no, so just doing things that it's relaxing and calming, and kind of just it's letting your body know it's time to wind down. And I find also that a lot of the herbal teas, like chamomile tea, or there's kind of sleepy time type teas. They can be quite good as well. So it might be after dinner, then you have a sleepy time tea, and you might watch your favorite show or whatever, but then you might just go and read a book or just listen to some music, but you just sort of dim it down, calm it down. You're essentially letting your body know, because we used to get that, in the evening, you get the afternoon, the light would start to go, the twilight, and you slowly got this message in your body that it was, it was time to go to sleep, but we don't get that now. And often the other end of it too is going outside in the daytime and actually getting some sunlight. It doesn't have to be sunbaking for hours, but just 10 minutes in the sun without your sunglasses on, so that you can get natural light into your eyes during the day, because that sleep hormone is made. You need both. You need the dark.
I always
and you need
wear
the
my
light.
sunglasses. So should I take them off for a little
Yeah,
bit?
take them off just for a few minutes. I'm not telling you to go out and look into the sun or
Florida.
anything silly like that. But literally just be outside without your sunglasses, without sunscreen and all of that. Look, and I've just been to the skin cancer clinic. I just had a biopsy taken on my head. So I'm not telling people to go and sunbake for hours in the sun and any of that. But just, 10 minutes in the sun often like early morning, late, depends where you are, just 10 minutes in the sun without your sunglasses on. Also, you're going to get that vitamin D through your skin.
Yes. Yeah.
It's important you get that from the sun, but you'll also get that stimulation, because your body, to make melatonin, you need light in the day and you need light to come into your eyes. And melatonin is your sleep hormone. Wow. So throughout the day, you get the light, and it starts to kind of make it ready for the evening. And then the evening, when it becomes dark, that's when your body knows to really pump it out now, because it's time for sleep. So if you don't get both, then often you can't sleep. And that's why people who do shift work have such a hard time with it, because it just destroys your circadian rhythm. Your body doesn't know if it's daytime, if it's nighttime, should I be awake, should I be asleep? And it gets very confused.
So, these are fabulous tips. So how does this, one more question, how does this relate to your brain? So during the day, if somebody is eating well, how is that going to help you to function at work or whatever you're doing to perform optimally?
Yeah, so several things. So one, as I was talking about before, it's going to maintain your energy levels throughout the day. So if you have a nice balanced meal with your protein and your veggies and your healthy fats, that just keeps you really nice and balanced. So your mood is stable, your energy is stable. So the starting point is that. So rather than having, when you eat just junk food all day, or you kind of eat even just things like if you just have cereal and bread and this and that, and there's no protein, you kind of have these ups and downs all day. So instead of having the ups and downs, you have just smooth energy, smooth mood. The other thing, of course, is the nutrients that are contained in that food, and the fact that those nutrients are making, the nutrients are making brain cells, they're making body cells, they're making liver cells, they're making your body function. So one side of it is that you're getting the nutrients that make everything in your body and that make the neurotransmitters, that make the immune system. And the other side of it is that you're eating in a way that just keeps you balanced throughout the day. So it's a combination of those two things.
Oh, that's great. That is just great information, and for your immune system and feeding your cells. So really, you have to be mindful of this. And so many people aren't, and they don't know. And that's really the key. So, right?
Yes. Exactly. And not just feeding yourself. I always remember this. You have to feed your body, and you have to feed yourself, but you also have to feed your microbiome, which is all those bugs that you've got.
What is microbiome for a lot of people?
Yeah, so your microbiome is basically all the mixture of bugs and fungi and all sorts of interesting things that live on your body. And we have several microbiomes, like we have a skin microbiome. But for the purposes of this, I'm talking about the gut microbiome. And so there's all sorts of bacteria and things in your gut. And they have a particular job, so lots of jobs, but they do things like a lot of your serotonin, I think about 70% is actually made in the gut. So serotonin being that sort of mood enhancing, the thing that makes you feel happy, right. A lot of it's made in the gut. But those gut bugs also, they will do things like they help you absorb and digest that food. They help make digestive enzymes so that you can break down that food. So they allow you to actually use those nutrients that you absorb, that you eat. They also are very much involved in your immune function. So your big part of your immune function is down to those microbes, those bacteria that you have in your gut. And the other thing too is that if you're eating plenty of veggies and you know, and some grains, whatever works for you, but you know, some rice or whatever it is that you have, and you're eating a bit of fruit, that kind of thing, those foods, all of those carbohydrates will feed that microbiome, and that's actually a good thing, because what they'll do is they feed the type of microbiome that is really supportive of your health and really supportive of your mental health. But if you're eating lots of sugar, so if you're having lots of sugary things and you're having your sodas and your juices and you know, muffins and all of the things that we have, if you're eating that way, you actually feed the detrimental bacteria, the bacteria that's going to cause you problems. And that bacteria drops your mood, makes you hungry for and craving sugar all the time, and really can change everything about how you feel. So which bacteria you feed matters. And essentially it's kind of like, if you feed the ones that are kind of like feeding the gremlins, then you have all sorts of problems, and you feel terrible, and you're just craving sugar all the time, and you know, you're hungry and you're hungry and you feel terrible. Whereas if you're feeding the good bacteria, they are doing all the wonderful things to support you, using your nutrients and having energy and having a healthy mood. So it's like, feed myself and feed my microbiome. And if you don't feed your microbiome, it actually eats your gut wall. It eats you.
It does what?
It eats your gut wall.
Oh my gosh.
You.
So that's a great visual right there. So next time you're eating sugar, just think about it eating right through your gut wall, and right. And you're not going to have the energy. You're not going to be able to think like you would like. You're not going to be able to perform the way you would like. And you're not going to have the joy in life, right? I mean, so your gut, it sounds like, is really such a key part of this. Of this. And
it absolutely is. It's integral. And when this isn't about depriving yourself or never enjoying food or anything like that. Eating well is actually quite, I have a really, like, my diet is great. I love it. It's yummy, you know. And of course, sometimes I eat chocolate and whatever I have, that's fine. I'm human. But once you have a reference point for feeling good, once you feel good, once you learn how to eat to really nourish yourself, you are highly motivated to keep feeling that way. And so I will go off here and there and have fun, you know, or just binge or do, like, you know, feel sorry for myself one day and have some chocolate or whatever it is. That's fine. Like, we're human, we would do that. However, if you have a reference point, you know how it is to feel good and what to do to feel good, then you're highly motivated to keep that going. So when people say, well, how do you do that? It's actually not hard, because not doing that is harder for me. Well,
you know what? To me, it's a mindset, and that's how I changed. So speaking of chocolate, I eat 90% cacao, and I love it. I mean, it melts in my mouth, and people are like, "What?" It does. I mean, I love it. But it really is a mindset, because if you know you're getting energy, and again, it's a visual, if you think about that eroding, you know, gut wall, you're not as likely to eat those foods, and you're mindful about it. So it really, it's you know, it is your mind. It affects your mind, and it starts in your mind.
Yeah. And that's why I teach my clients to be very present with their body and very present with how they feel. And the more that you are in touch, the more that you're eating to nourish, the more that you'll know what that is for you. And when you eat to nourish, and when you are very aware of how you feel and how certain foods make you feel, or how certain lifestyle choices make you feel, once you're really, really aware of that, then it's really hard to trash yourself. You might do it a little bit here and there, but essentially what most of us are doing is we're on autopilot, where it's all unconscious. We're not thinking about it. We're not aware that we feel that bad, and we're not aware why we feel that bad, and we don't have a reference point for feeling good. But once you are absolutely aware and absolutely connected, and you know that if I eat that thing, that's how I feel, then it's your choice then, and you can still consciously have the thing, that's fine, but generally speaking, when you are eating in a really conscious way, you don't choose to trash yourself over and over. You'll do it here and there maybe, but you won't do it every day all of the time. It's just because it's not worth it. Because once you have that connection, once you are very clear, if I eat this way, I feel like that. If I eat this way, I feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then essentially for you, or I say to my clients, is when you're asking yourself what to eat next, the question is, will this nourish me? And how am I going to feel?
Okay.
And that is very different to, you know, what if Fiona said the rules are, or is it good or bad, or is it right or wrong? There's not,
right.
It takes away all the emotional stuff, because we do get a lot of emotional stuff around food.
You make it about you.
And shame, you know.
Yeah, you make it about you and what makes you feel better. And, you know, that's all just a piece of the puzzle, the mind, body, and spirit. And when they're working together, you flourish. And
yes, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And if the focus is on nourishing you, it's the same with exercise. Like, I'm a really big fan of moving my body, but I don't move my body so I can burn off X amount of calories and to make up for the guilt I have because I ate chocolate or whatever it is. I move my body because I feel good when I move my body, and it gives me strength, and it improves my mood, and it, you know, it clears my head. It does a whole bunch of wonderful things. But it's empowering me. I'm not doing it out of shame or guilt because of what I ate. So it's about approaching whatever you do. You can do the same thing. You can eat well and exercise, but coming from a point of view of shaming and hating on yourself and attacking yourself. Right. Or you can do the same thing from the perspective of nurturing and nourishing your body and your mind. And it's a very different energy, and you may have a very different outcome, even just doing the same thing.
Right. Well, you know what? And that's fabulous. And I totally agree. I just want to say that picking what you want and doing what is good for you. I used to do all kinds of things exercise wise. I was a personal trainer, and I taught water aerobics. So I was always very active. You know what? Now my favorite thing is going for a walk. I love it, because what you just said, it clears your mind, and be okay with that, right? Be okay. It's good for me. It works for my body. And you know what? You have to pick and choose what works for you. So, well, this has been fabulous. Fiona, I know we've this is a great place to kind of close this up. And I'd like you to, just before we do that, a couple of things. I'm going to have you do one last piece of advice, but before you do that, could you share your gift that you have for people?
Yes, so it's the Mood and Food ebook. And essentially with that Mood and Food ebook, it gives you all of the tips, everything I've talked about, but a whole lot more detail in the way to eat, to really, really improve your mood, stabilize your mood, and make you feel so much better and have so much more energy. So
wow.
Really
I don't know anybody who wouldn't want that. So look in the email. We're going to have the link to that, and look her up. We're going to have your information. Get a hold of Fiona, and she can help you with your gut health or whatever you have going on. So this has been so wonderful, such great tips. Is there any last piece of advice that you want to give? I know you've given so much.
Yeah, I would just say, don't be rigid and hardline about managing your health. If you come from the approach of nurturing and nourishing yourself, and what does that look like for me today, you will largely make the best choices for you. When we get rigid and hardline about stuff, we get very stressed about it. And if you're approaching your health and your diet and your lifestyle from a stressed perspective, that undermines the whole thing. So don't be rigid about it, and have compassion for yourself, but really approach it from a conscious place where you're making the decision about, will this nourish me? And if we do it from that place and not from a stressed or rigid place, it works a whole lot better for us.
Oh, that is wonderful advice. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving from your heart what will help people to not only nourish their bodies, their souls, their minds, to be the best person that they can be. So thank you again. And goodbye for now, everyone. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.